Wonder Woman 759. It's great to have this back. Mariko Tamaki writing with Mikel Janin on the art. And this is the start of her run. So it's got that fresh coat of paint. And I was looking forward to this. I was very excited to see what the focus was going to be. We have Maxwell Lord, of course, being a prime factor in here. Even teasing the the neck snap page with the very intentionally, which obviously she's not snapped his neck, but very intentionally is conjuring an image of that page at one point.
Absolutely.
Go on, Matt.
Well, I was just gonna say, it seems like Tamaki's gonna play with that about how, because I'm still not clear on Max Lord after what was that, the Justice League versus Suicide Squad tie-in that was supposed to lead to bigger things and whatnot. So I'm still not sure what Max Lord's place is.
Lord.
Yeah.
I would say hopefully this book defines that.
And that's what I'm thinking is gonna go, because why tease that? Right.
Yeah.
So
Correct me if I'm wrong, but back when this was announced, they mentioned that she'd be losing the sword and kind of and it was a weird like symmetry with what was going on in the movie, because obviously that's a thing in that she wasn't going to be doing the full offensive heroics in that movie. It would just be the lasso and the tiara and whatever. Is that because someone was tweeting me the other day and I mentioned that, and then I thought, I'm going to check, and I googled it and I couldn't find any reference to it. I'm like, did I make this up?
I don't remember it, so I mean,
I think I remember hearing it in for the movie, right? But and so maybe we pause it. Maybe they'll do the same.
I think. Do you know what the problem is that I have a memory of reading it and thinking and them saying it was a coincidence that the movie was doing the same thing. But this was announced so long ago now, thanks to delays beyond their control, that it was in the old days of Newsarama before they wiped all their records. and I'm like, did the article exist? And I read it and it's just gone now?
If we talked about it in the show, our conversation will still be there to find.
That's true. God knows when. But
just have to go find the episode and so on.
Right, because
maybe one of our listeners will remember better than me.
When was Wonder Woman 84 supposed to come out?
Oh, it was
June.
June, yeah, originally.
June? Was that the original date?
Yeah.
That was the original month for this as well, I think, actually, now I'm thinking about
it. That's why I remember thinking that they were like lining up neatly, and obviously we were doing the Max Lord stuff, who's the villain of that movie as well, or a villain of that movie.
Yeah, I mean, Wonder Woman, the movie's currently scheduled for October, but we'll see. We'll see. So no, I really like this issue. I suppose I'll get that out of the way.
The layout. I mean, it's
the layout.
It's hard not to throw praise on Janin, right? Because it's so easy. But this is so different.
Quibbles.
I
some of his specific moments, but the layout and the pacing.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's a couple of small things to nitpick at. There's one page where Diana's running towards the camera, as it were, and her head looks kind of sort of stuck on almost. But typically speaking, the art is like wonderfully pretty to look at. It's just and I think the overall style reminds me almost of, I mean, obviously different artists, but it reminds me of the type of art that would be in like in the X-23 book that Tamaki did. It feels like it kind of fits into that mold in a big way.
I get that. This feels like a very classical look for Wonder Woman. Like in the going back to not long before New 52, like in the 4 or 5 years before that. This feels like a style that would fit that book there really nicely, and I'm here for that.
Yeah, no, the art's wonderful, and I love all the stuff because there's a tease at the start of this prison with all the reds and blacks, which I think look gorgeous, and then obviously she goes there at the end. But then it gets bright and colourful. We get kind of the first couple of pages, once it gets to Wonder Woman, it's basically just here's kind of because it's the start of a run, writers love to do this thing where they sort of say, here's basically just my thesis and a couple of pages of what Wonder Woman is, and here's the classic.
Now I'm gonna deconstruct this.
So we see her fighting a dinosaur, cheetah, and a bunch of other things. She's with the Justice League, and then we have the Maxwell Lord page where she's got the lasso around him, and it sets all these things up. But the actual plot, once we get into it, is that she is moving into a new apartment in Washington, and she meets her new neighbor, because the neighbor's got a runaway rabbit that snuck into
which
her
he
room.
has a little
Made-
conversation with.
Yes.
Made me think of the Shazam, with Hoppy.
Oh,
I have a
sure.
question. I'm not familiar
Yeah.
enough with rabbits' anatomy. Is the panel of the first panel or the first page where we see that rabbit and it's bounding along, the very bottom
Mhm.
panel where it's
Mhm.
bounding towards us. Its feet are like so high up above it. Like, is that a thing rabbits do when they're running at full tilt like that? I've never watched a rabbit run,
Yeah, me neither. But
but it
it's
stuck out to me,
it's
and
a
I'm
show
not
motion.
yeah,
Have-
I'm not questioning that it's wrong.
I-
It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I'm
oh,
just saying. Have you ever watched animals run in slow motion? It's like on a nature special.
only on like an Attenborough thing or whatever.
And I was gonna say it's wild to see stuff their body does
Mm.
that you don't notice because we're running at full speed in our brain. But yeah, so maybe
I
I'm not
think
certain.
this panel or this page of like watching the rabbit like go down the hall, this bright colorful art, it
There's
kind
a
of
lot
like
borders just around
The
the
borders.
panels.
So I wanted to bring up.
Can I finish my sentence? Jesus Christ.
No.
Right, I was going to say it kind of starts this tone right away of this kind of playful, likable atmosphere that I think really kind of sets up what the book is going for, and it also nicely contrasts with the dark prison stuff that we get to at the end, where it feels like, oh no, there's a real dark side to this world too, but it sets up this innocent side first, and even the neighbor kind of adds into that, where the neighbor has these memory issues, she writes things down, she's not full on Memento, of course,
Right, but
but-
she does have a problem, so she has to keep
Yeah.
track of stuff.
so and basically Diana needs some furniture. There's a sort of gag almost with she's got all these like statues and like ancient pottery and all that
So
kind of stuff.
I didn't realize this because I read this first during the week, so it was a while ago, probably on Tuesday when it came out, and I didn't realize that everyone moving her into the apartments in Amazon.
Yeah,
Oh,
like-
sure.
Like when I was reading it the first time, I thought like, oh, these are just people helping like movers or whatever, and I was reading it so quick that I was like, oh no, these are. So
suddenly you notice these are all very athletic women who are,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, I get who they must be.
right. So I do like that. And then of course they go to the IKEA like store, which is a lot of fun.
Fern, I believe it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they talk about how people like the illusion of choice, and stuff. So I'm sure I've read enough Tamaki now at this point that I'm sure the whole illusion of choice thing isn't an accident, especially when you start getting with Max Lord.
Oh
And
sure, yeah.
what he's
Like,
about.
because that all
you know.
comes down to mind control. So obviously thematically, I think this definitely linking in there in a nice little way. Yeah. So they're at the store. Wonder Woman's even like appalled at the fact that she has to pay $900 for a couch and then assemble it herself.
900, I think
directions.
you'll find.
That's what I said.
Mhm.
So you said 800.
Mhm. He said 9.
Yeah, thank
Oh,
you.
Jesus. Okay.
So yeah, but anyway, the thing that happens here is that there's like basically there's some commotion in the distance where a car squeals off and like a dad and his daughter are kind of like yelling, "Sarah, stop!" Blah blah blah. So we're not really sure exactly what's happening here, but Wonder Woman goes in pursuit in her bare feet down the
I
highway.
like that. It takes that moment to show. Okay, no, she's pulling off the heel. She needs to
Yeah.
run.
Yeah. But I thought the sequencing in this was fantastic. The sense of speed as this mum who clearly is not herself. Her eyes are red. The baby in the
Right.
back seat's crying. Clearly something's taken over, and this is not intentional. That 2-page layout.
Her jumping over the car
Yeah.
is.
It looks like a
fantastic.
hurdle. Like if you ever watch hurdling.
Yeah.
Oh, with the way
you
the
know?
legs are. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I felt that with the sprint as well when she set
Mhm.
off.
Yeah, talk about Wonder Woman
obviously
here,
there's
by the
the-
way, because the way you sort of just said her after I was talking about the mom in the car. I just want to make
Yeah,
that
yeah,
clear.
sorry.
We're
No,
talking
no.
Wonder Woman's the one who's running and jumping, just to make that
Yes.
Yeah.
that clear.
When she sets off, obviously that's where that funny panel is that we were talking about earlier
Mhm.
with the face. But then the one below it, where it's her setting off the run from behind,
Mhm.
and you've got like the foot pushing off. It feels like like an actual runner.
Yeah, and so that's the thing with Janet, especially on this art, is nothing feels static. Like you take away the page above where it's weirdly posed, right? Not the page, but the panel. but everything like without motion, without a lot of motion lines and blur and stuff, everything's in motion, and I feel that's a little bit new when it comes to Janet. Like maybe his Grayson when he was on Grayson is a little bit like that,
Yeah,
but
I think he did the classic silhouette, transparent
this
things. for
is
Grayson.
an
Yeah.
interesting point, actually, I think Matt's bringing up, is because I kind of feel this as well, is that I can definitely see Yanin in this, but
Mhm.
it doesn't feel like the Yanin that was on Batman. It feels like he's
No.
intentionally doing something different here,
Yeah.
which I might even like a bit more than his Batman, potentially.
Yeah.
Well, and it feels like he's experimenting because I'm thinking back. That's why maybe Grayson, just because of the nature of that character, there's a grace
Probably
and a
the
flow
closest.
to him, right?
Hell,
But yeah, when you think
there's,
about his work on Batman and what else has he worked on?
I'm not gonna lie,
I'm
there's
thinking
actually
back.
some panels in here, some of the faces. Now, as much as I had that complaint where the one where she's
Mhm.
running towards the car for the first time, her head looks a bit stuck on.
Mhm.
There's panels in here where the faces almost look Sejic-esque.
Yeah,
I can see where you're coming from. That I think, honestly, I think that might be a lot down to Bel Air and the relatively flat colors, especially on some of the faces. There's not a lot of
Mhm.
dimension in them. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I think they're really expressive and look great. But I think that's something that Sejic does with a lot of his
No, they are
coloring
great.
as well.
The car's
Um,
going to swerve into a truck, like a big semi, and Wonder Woman. There's a great page here where she stopped this, and she's got like a hand on the front of the truck and a hand on the front of the car, and she's just kind of like holding them off from each other. It's a really big, nice action shot.
It's so good. Yeah. Something Matt hit on with the motion lines. Something I found really interesting with that is there are almost no motion lines on Wonder Woman herself, but there are on everything around her.
everything else, right?
The only panel I can think of that really has a lot of motion lines on Wonder Woman is as she's jumping
Do you-
into the car.
Do you know
through
what
the
that
window.
does?
Mhm.
Do you know what that impression it gives? It gives this impression of grace because she's not.
It's that, and it shows it's when you're in a car going fast and you look out the window and everything's like just flying past. It gives that impression for her. She's moving that much faster than all the other stuff there. That she's the one that feels at equilibrium and still, and everything else is just flying by.
It gives me the impression that she is. I mean, grace was the best word for it, really. I've already used that, but like, it gives me the impression that she is so confident and agile and is like, and knows exactly what she's doing. That she's never like hesitating or second guessing where she needs to go or what she needs to do. Everything's very kind of laser focused, so it gives this confidence to her as well. Confidence in the art, sure, as well, but I mean, just from a character perspective, she feels confident in what she's doing. But then, of course, this is obviously Wonder Woman has an idea of who's behind this, and this leads to the prison stuff at the end, where the coloring completely changes. It's all blacks and it's deep blues outside, but once they go inside the prison, where presumably there's red lights because there's a riot going on, and we see all the glowing eyes. Wonder Woman's in costume. They're all fighting, and then so there's a couple of great pages of her just fighting all these people. It looks really great. And then Maxwell Lord from the sidelines just says stop, and everyone who was fighting, presumably for his own amusement, or maybe even to draw attention of someone like Wonder Woman, he was making them all fight. They stop and they all stab themselves in the necks, which is actually really
because
goddamn
he tells
dark.
them to die as well.
Yeah. And the cliffhanger is just Wonder Woman's there face to face with Maxwell Lord, and like the confrontation next time. Well, it's a great cliffhanger. I mean, I think this works really well in two ways. It works in the sense that if you're a first time reader of Wonder Woman, if you're okay, maybe I mean, the movie's not actually out yet, but let's say you're getting into Wonder Woman because the movies are coming out, and you're like, I want to read some Wonder Woman. I think this works on its own because it does enough to establish Maxwell Lord as very serious, given what we see that he almost does to the family, and then what he does to all these prisoners. If you're someone who's familiar with Wonder Woman history and you have the weight of Maxwell Lord's past with Wonder Woman, the cliffhanger has this big impact of, oh shit, like what's this version of this encounter going to be? Where's this story going to go? So
just on the timing with the movie, assuming it does come out in October, like it's theoretically going to, but none of us really believe. But if it did, this would probably have the trade just about ready or not long after, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when it gets pushed again, the trade will definitely be out.
Yeah, but that would be a great thing to for comic stores. If anyone comes in after seeing that movie and goes, "Hey, I'm interested," just throw this trade at them, please.
Yeah. I think
don't give them Sacrifice, because I reread Sacrifice.
Sure.
It wasn't as good as I remembered. So, Let's aim for this one, DC.
Oh sure. Well, I think the point we're making is it's very new. I mean, at least from this first issue, it feels very new reader friendly without sacrificing what it means to us as long time either readers or at the very least we have a basic idea of what went on.
Right.
I mean I've read Sacrifice too, but it's been a while, admittedly. So
Yeah, and like you have positive memories of it because of the Rucka chapters, but then when you read all the lead up that was going on in the Superman books,
Oh,
and
sure.
it's rough times. The Rucka stuff is still pretty solid, but come on, it's Greg Rucka.
This first issue is basically everything I hoped from a Tamaki first issue on Wonder Woman.
Just something that I love that we haven't really touched on is how much of this issue is Diana and Civies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I always love. Just, okay, no, we're really starting down to earth. She's moving into a new apartment. It's as, standard as it gets.
I mean, that's your typical thing to make it feel new, but like just the fact that it's introducing like a supporting character who's clearly going to be sticking around in this run is a big deal for me, because one of the things I always complain about in Justice League especially is that it needs more downtime, it needs more stuff to like make them feel human and give them the human connections that really gives it the heart to the overall story. In this first issue, and I expected no less from Tamaki, but this first issue immediately does that. It immediately gave me, here's a supporting character who seems likable, who befriends Diana, and when she's in danger at some point, and no doubt she will be, it's going to hurt, and it's going to really drive the motivation for Wonder Woman to do the right thing. So, I
think Wonder Woman is one of those characters that's always in need of a more human supporting cast. Because don't get me wrong, we've got like Steve and Etta, but they are agents in their own right. They kind of belong in that world already. Having the more civilian side of things is something that I feel a lot of characters could do with in general. I think it always it grounds them in a more human
honestly
way.
One of the biggest problem with comics is that whenever a new writer takes over a run, they always want to do their own supporting cast and not continue to use whatever the previous writer set up, unless it's like a golden age character, like obviously Superman always has Jimmy and whatnot, but a lot of the characters don't have that established cast that everyone uses, so they end up like you'll like the characters they introduce in this Supergirl run, but then the next Supergirl like series starts, it's like, oh no, forget about all those side characters, we're going to do new side characters.
Yeah, one of the better examples of that in recent years, I think, has been Batgirl, which because Gail Simone introduced a lot of characters in that regard in her run, and quite a few of them popped up repeatedly in subsequent runs. In multiple subsequent runs actually. So I'm a fan.
And then the Gordon Clean Energy, that was something that was introduced by in the Burnside stuff.
I mean, it does happen from time to time
until recently,
but it's definitely it's something that sticks out to
yeah.
me when it doesn't get carried forward, and that tends to be, I'd say, more of the time.
Yeah,
so
and obviously we didn't read most of the previous Orlando run, if any, but we read the first Orlando section, or a lot of it anyway. And the only major supporting character it really added was Jason, which even our thoughts on that aside, even our thoughts on him aside, doesn't solve the problem. It's already
that wasn't Orlando.
Was that not Orlando?
That was Robinson.
Yeah.
Robinson started.
Sorry. Okay.
Right.
Because Orlando was in and out for a bit.
I did the same thing because I didn't enjoy a lot of what Orlando was doing, and I just automatically applied him Jason.
Yeah.
But didn't he use Jason for a second too?
Maybe, I don't know.
Because
obviously Orlando has actually the annual coming up, which is the actual ending to his run. But the last issue of Wonder Woman, the last proper issue, the final moments of that were Jason, I believe.
Shut up. But it wasn't him that wrote all this stuff with Jason coming into the book and all that stuff. None of that was Orlando.
But more the point there being was, okay, it's a new supporting cast, but it's someone who's ingratiated into that side of the world, who's involved in the mythology. I like having the civilian side of it, like we've got here.
Yeah, I think a lot of superhero books really benefit from that, and a lot of them don't do it, which is frustrating. So I'm really glad that a lot of the writers that I like, Tamaki, the newer writers like Tamaki, Taylor, these writers, they tend to be very good, and part of what I like about their work is that they have that human element. And, if you read Tom Taylor's Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, that book immediately did that kind of thing, and it really made it feel like it had a lot of heart, and I cared about who Spider-Man was saving, because I knew people in the community that he was saving. I knew what was at stake every time he was doing something, so it grounded it in a really good way. So
Yeah,
it's,
and
it's
you
one
always
of the
bring
few
up.
things that the TV shows kind of work at is having a lot of extra people supporting, and a lot of them
Mhm.
inevitably get drawn in. But uh, it's would be nice to see more of those actually make the leap into the comics as some more civilian counterparts.
yeah, what are you gonna say, Matt?
But I was just gonna say because you bring up, both Tamaki and Taylor wrote Laura Kinney,
Mm.
All New Wolverine and X-23, and they both approach it in a similar way, where it was about the relationships to Laura. Because when you think about Wolverine and all the relationships that he had, she's almost in his shadow, and the way that they go about that in building a community, right? That's what
Yeah.
Taylor does in All New Wolverine.
Do you know what's so funny,
Like,
about this is that as we're talking about this, I'm realizing this is the problem with newer Star Trek is that old Star Trek, it was always about the characters. It was always about every story is how does it affect Data's like quest for humanity? How does it affect Picard's ideals? How does it affect these things? Whereas the
Now
new
it's about
Picard
the plot.
and New Discovery, it's always about there's some apocalyptic vision that's going to end the universe. It's always about the plot now. So I just think it's funny that I had that thought as we're talking about comic books. But hey, but no, Wonder Woman, fantastic start, I think, and art's a couple of nitpicks aside, art is gorgeous, and I'm excited that Yanin, I think, is doing this first arc, and he's
I
alternating
believe so, yeah.
after that, which is a good system. Hopefully, they can stick to that.
Hopefully, we've got. I feel like we know who's on the next arc, or at least the next issue, 'cause in the solicits.
We do, I think.
I don't recall who it was. I hope it's someone that's good. That can live up to this.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you always hope the art's going to be someone good, no matter what the context is.
But this is particularly good.
So yeah, all right, Matt, what are you giving Wonder Woman 7.5?
I'm giving this an 8.5.
All right, Connor.
Yeah, same from me.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 9. Kind of loved it.